Well, this is it. The election season, the biggest event that our country witnesses, a living proof of a thriving democracy, has officially begun now. 900 million, that's 90 crore people are set to vote in the world's largest such exercise. 15 million or 1.5 crore are in the age group of 18 to 19, those who've just recently got the legal right to vote. And here is the big headline, the key date that we'd all been watching out for. May 23rd will be the counting day, the result day. Elections will be held in 7 phases, starting from April 11th all the way up to 19th of May, and then the counting on May 23rd. Except in Jammu and Kashmir, assembly polls and by-polls will be simultaneously held wherever they are due right now. Let's put this all in perspective and get the conversation going here. Let's say good evening to our expert team sitting with me this evening. Radhika Ramaseshan, consulting editor to Business Standard. Bharat Kumar Raut, political analyst with us in our studios. Bacha Sen, senior journalist, joining us from Delhi. And Vinay Tiwari, our consulting editor, also with us. Vinay, let me start with you. 7 phases, all culminating on May 23rd. How is the picture looking right now?
Well, I mean, more or less okay. Though few surprises in my book. I think there are certain. Somebody did ask that question to the CEC about, for instance, Odisha being put through a multiple phase poll, which is not exactly how it happens. But I guess the fact that they've contained it to 7 phases is welcome, because we've gone as high as 9 on one occasion. Predictably, UP, West Bengal and Bihar are in every single phase, which is exactly how it is every time. So that's not a surprise. And from a political point of view, of course, we still don't have the notifications. We don't know which constituency is going to poll on which day.
Right.
But phase 3 in terms of the size is, of course, the biggest. So that's perhaps the most politically relevant, I guess. Once we see the schedule, we'll probably know that as well.
Yes. So phase 3, which is on 23rd of April, will have about 115 constituencies that will go to vote across 14 states. Of course, in the number of state-wise, with 91 constituencies is what we will see on 11th of April. Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat, Arunachal, Goa, Haryana, Himachal Pradesh, Kerala, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Punjab, Tamil Nadu, Telangana and Uttarakhand. These are the states which will only have one phase. So on one single day, the entire state will go to vote. And like when I was pointing out, on the other hand, you have 3 states, Bihar, Bengal and Uttar Pradesh, who will see 7 phases of voting. Karnataka, Rajasthan, Manipur and Tripura are the ones that will see 2 phases of voting. Jammu and Kashmir will see 5 phases. But like you were just listening in, there won't be any assembly elections held in Jammu and Kashmir right now. Only Lok Sabha elections, and politics over that has already begun, with Omar Abdullah lashing out. But we thought that let's now look at what would be the key themes. Let's now look at what it is that could perhaps decide the course of this election season, may or may not really play out as the big themes this political season. But let's get our first views in. Mr. Raut, what did you think? Any surprises there as far as the election dates are concerned, or pretty much the routine?
No, I am not surprised at all, because whatever has been decided, it is as per our tradition.
Yeah.
So most of the states, like Gujarat and Goa and other states, they are going in one phase for last 3-4 elections.
Correct.
Now that is the same. I'm a bit surprised about Bengal. Why should Bengal go in all 7 phases? I didn't understand. Perhaps because of Naxalite problems, they must have decided to go in smaller phases than large phases. Otherwise, Bengal should have gone in 3 or 4 phases at most. UP, yes, UP always goes in more phases because of the size of the state. Otherwise, nothing is extraordinary in this schedule.
Right.
Now it is to be seen what will come out of it, what will be the verdict.
Yes.
Like the Maharashtra, state like Maharashtra is going in first 4 phases.
Yes.
Initial first phases, Maharashtra will be over. So perhaps the law and order machinery and other movement can be moved to other states after this. So they would be, if the 4th phase happens on 29th April,
yes,
then we still have almost 20 days for last phase to go. So a lot of electioneering will happen during that. That is my conjunction.
All right. So here are the basic questions that we've put together that we would be asking our panelists and discussing over the next 1 hour. Question number 1. Will the post-aerial strikes shift in national narrative impact the poll outcomes? In other words, do you think that the strike that we carried out in Balakot in Pakistan is going to help the BJP gain an edge this election season? Question number 2, will the aggressive push of nationalism card by the BJP help them check their loss on ground that we've actually seen? If there is a sentiment that BJP is right now lagging in a few places, will playing up the nationalism card one more time help the party? The big issues have been the farm crisis and the job crisis, or the job crisis debate. Will they still remain key election issues, and will the voter have that in mind when they finally make their decision? Question number 4, and this has been a big conversation point again. Can Narendra Modi's chemistry trump the combined opposition's arithmetic? Of course, to get to that point, first you have to also ask, will there be a combined opposition by the end of this entire election season, or will they end up just fighting within themselves? But largely the sentiment is Modi versus rest. How will that play out? Question number 5. Will Congress's consistent attempts to use Rafale as a corruption case, will that narrative work? They have again and again and again played out on this. Do you think they have successfully managed to put this idea in the people's mind to make them question whether there was corruption? Question number 6. Will we see a deep rural and urban divide? That's also largely one of the big themes you see in election season. Will we see that divide again play out during campaign? And will schemes like the economically weak section quota of 10% and the farm support income that the government has already announced, will this help the BJP regain some of the lost ground? So let me go across to Radhika Ramaseshan on question number 1. Good evening, Ms. Ramaseshan. What's your view? Do you think politically
good evening,
the strikes we carried out in Pakistan will help the BJP?
Certainly in the urban areas, and I'm talking about Delhi and some of the adjoining places in Haryana and Uttar Pradesh, where I have been speaking to people, it has kind of reshaped the narrative. You know, I mean, after those 3 electoral losses in December, it looked like agrarian crisis and GST demonetization would probably dominate the discourse. But suddenly, you know, people are talking about India's audacious strikes across the border in Pakistan, of teaching Pakistan a lesson. And, you know, if you ask a question that why was the killing of those 40 CRPF soldiers allowed to be happened in the first place, wasn't that gross intelligence failure? Nobody is willing to brook any kind of questioning.
Yes.
Okay, but I mean, I must qualify that Western UP and Haryana are, you know, martial territories. A lot of the service forces come from these regions. So maybe the sort of nationalist sentiments ignite the imagination of people, their political sensibilities, and so on. But definitely there is a reshaping of narrative happening in urban Delhi across the board, and it's not just restricted to ex-servicemen or military people. I mean, you know, middle class, lower middle class, poor people, everybody is saying that only Modi has the valor to do this kind of a thing. That there's also another reason for it. The other side looks so hopelessly divided. I mean, is the Congress going with the AAP, not going with the AAP? I mean, the whole thing is so stupidly fluid that, you know, the opposition is quite making a laughing stock of itself. So here you have a leader, you have some kind of a narrative, you have a theme around which the discourse is shaping up. So these things do work in the favor of the ruling party. However, we just have to see how the opposition's discourse shapes up in the coming days, and they will have to muster all the skills, all the stratagems at their command to make some kind of an impact.
So, I have a couple of data points, and of course, it may be too soon to see how it pans out in the coming weeks, but actually an opinion poll that was conducted by India TV and CNX after the air strikes forecast that BJP could win about 41 of the 80 Lok Sabha seats in Uttar Pradesh, and this is primarily for Uttar Pradesh, which is obviously well below what they got in last time, which was 73. But it showed a gain for BJP from a few weeks ago before the airstrikes. The other data point is that Reuters spoke to about 49 farmers in the states of Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh and Karnataka, and only 18 of them still said that they will vote for BJP. So there is still a, a segment that may not necessarily just decide on the basis of these airstrikes, but definitely Mr. Badshah Sen, BJP has tried to change the narrative, and if you speak about that specific airstrike and the support to the forces, they own the narrative there.
Yes, Sanjeev, that definitely. I mean, this is of course a feeling and a very genuine feeling that the narrative has shifted. There is no opinion poll that has taken place since Pulwama and the airstrike in Balakot. So we really don't know how much that impact will be, but we do know that the trend which was going away from the BJP on the basis, as Radhika said, on the basis of things like GST, demonetization, agrarian crisis and so on, that trend has been reversed. Now, we really don't know how much it has been reversed, because to begin with, various opinion polls in December and January this year, December last year, actually showed a very, very mixed picture, with moderate chances of the BJP alone emerging, with moderate chances of the opposition united emerging. Now that narrative has changed in the sense that there is a single point on which you have Mr. Modi. In 2014, of course, Mr. Modi again was projected as the only leader standing tall. There was a corrupt Congress. There were squabbling opposition parties. Well, I think in a certain sense that narrative is still there, because Modi is suddenly standing tall on the basis of national security. However, the squabbling opposition continues as they were in 2014. What has changed is in 2014, it was Modi plus corruption of the Congress and the UPA, and now it is Modi plus the security threat,
Yes.
or the feelings of terrorism overtaking this country. So there is Modi plus security. Earlier it was Modi plus corruption. Now that is definitely something that we need to take cognizance of.
Correct.
I really cannot say how much of a swing it will have on people's mind. I do not know how long it will last, because we've got a 7-phase election. So I do not know what will happen over the next 100 days. I mean, for that matter, just as a joke, we have the IPL coming along also, and they're catching eyeballs on your television screen.
Yes.
But I do believe, I can say quite categorically, Modi plus security at the moment does have the edge over a squabbling and rather loosely lit opposition.
So like you said, it may be difficult to predict the extent of benefit that they'll get, but is there a past precedent we can look into, like what happened post Kargil? Did it help the government then? Is there something that we can look into it from that time?
So there are two precedences, and I think Badshah mentioned the IPL, the Indian Premier League and Indian Political League are not very different in that sense, right? Both are played almost like a T20 nowadays. You tend to forget what happened 3 days ago pretty quickly.
Yes.
And I think that's perhaps an important point. You have exactly a month for the first phase. Also remember, the narrative of nationalism, the narrative of Pakistan is largely a north phenomena. It's not, if you go south of India, these things don't resonate as much. Also because of historical reasons. I mean, south of India is not a place which has ever faced the pangs of partition. The hatred for Pakistan is not that deep. They've not faced invasions. It's a north issue. And in the north, for instance, in places like Churu in Rajasthan, just the day after the strike, if you remember, Mr. Modi held a rally in Churu in Rajasthan.
That was the first statement he made.
First statement he made. And that is a part where virtually every household in that village
Correct.
has a soldier in the army.
Absolutely.
Places like Uttarakhand, for instance, you have every other rank official Jawans coming from large parts of Uttarakhand. So there are pockets in area. In the urban areas, of course, nationalism plays a large role. Pakistan is a unifying factor in terms of, uniting people. I think a lot will depend on how the BJP plays out the next 1 month. I have a feeling they will have this timed release of so-called evidence. They will do all of that, because how you sustain the momentum will make a lot of difference on how much you can exploit it. And that's one reason why we were very interested in checking out the Election Commission's seat-by-seat announcement, because where they can exploit it is something which is of immense interest in this particular election.
Correct. Correct. So, I mean, what would be the constituencies and states that you will be watching out for in the early phase then?
Well, I would certainly be looking at some parts of Uttar Pradesh for sure, because look, in Uttar Pradesh they have an arithmetic problem and they kind of know that, and I think the only hope that they have to counter the arithmetic is to play the nationalism, patriotism, Pakistan card, because that's the only thing that can unify you against arithmetic of caste and religion to some extent. So I guess that's the only option they have. Parts of Rajasthan, for instance, which is a straight fight between the Congress and the BJP.
So I think Rajasthan, which is two-phase, one of them is 6th May. I think I missed the earlier date.
Also in West Bengal, for instance, like in Bengal, the is playing that card, and that is getting dovetailed into the so-called nationalism, patriotism card as well. There is an NRC factor there as well, and there is this polarization that is happening because of that too. So a lot of issues are getting intermingled. I think the larger point is that because of Pulwama and Balkot, the momentum and the narrative of jobs and farmers has been arrested to some extent. It's not being talked about as much, and the opposition is finding it difficult to bring it back to the mainstream. You can sense the opposition feels that way, because Mr. Chidambaram just yesterday kept on insisting about jobs being the only issue. So they kind of sense that, and I think they are trying very hard to bring that back up in the national mindset.
Mr. Rao, do you agree that, do you see nationalism trumping over farm crisis and jobs as narratives from here on?
You're absolutely right. Vinay has really pinpointed the whole thing. The BJP's narrative is changing. If you see their expressions and their speeches, Modi's mood, it has been changing, and it will change further. It is said that politicians must know that people's memory is very short. And so, sense of nationalism, that lasts. So, my feeling is that now we are exactly 1 month away from the first phase of polling.
Yes.
Okay, the second phase is on 18th of April, and then there is 23rd of April. So if something happens, say another surgical strike that happens within this period, then perhaps the whole picture will change further. So that is my feeling that, Modi has very calculatively said that we have given all rights to the army to take action without the political repercussions. So that it means that he has thrown everything on army, and if army takes any action, Modi will say that I have given them all rights. So he does not take any burden of that.
But it was
on other hand, some other things will happen. Naval chief, I am not attributing any motive to that, but he said that there is a chance of next attack coming from the sea.
Yes.
That's what the naval chief has said. It means apart from the Haryana and Rajasthan and Punjab, the people from the coastal line, western coastal line, like say Gujarat or Maharashtra, Mumbai, Konkan, they will also be alerted. So the sense of security or the sense of insecurity, that unites people further.
Absolutely.
And if that happens, that BJP stands benefited. That is one thing. So, A, another surgical strike. B, the license given to the armed forces to act as per their will and wish. That these two things, and the fear of another sea attack coming, that would make all the difference. So the narrative of BJP would surely change in the next 1 month's time, and if that happens, then it is beneficial to the ruling side.
Okay, and I wanted to move to question number 3, but very quickly, Radhika Ramaseshan wanted to come in and make a point, and also one very interesting thing happened. Yes, just 30 seconds, please. I just wanted to mention this. I don't know what you all think of it, but the comment that Home Minister Rajnath Singh made yesterday was very interesting, where he came out to say that we have carried out 3 cross-border strikes. I will only give you details of 2 of them, and I won't speak about the 3rd one. Now, technically, if you see, there have been 3 cross-border strikes. One was the surgical strike in POK, one was the Balakot strike in Pakistan, and the 3rd one was in Myanmar. But the government has spoken about the Myanmar surgical strike. So it was a very cryptic, comment that he made, and he said it again and again. I don't know what you all think of it, but go ahead, Radhika Ramaseshan. You wanted to say something.
Yeah, you were talking about precedents, in 1999, after the Kargil war, the election that was held in September, October, the impact was very mixed, In UP, for instance, the BJP's tally came down from 58 Lok Sabha seats to 29. and the vote percentage also fell. So that sort of indicated that Kargil didn't have the kind of impact that the BJP would have looked for in Uttar Pradesh. And the reason being that the maximum number of body bags returned to Uttar Pradesh, and agrarian crisis. I covered that election very closely, so I can say with some responsibility. Agrarian crisis was a major issue then itself in those elections. And farmers were very upset with the Vajpayee government, so they decided to vote against the BJP. On the other hand, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh returned a handsome number of seats for the BJP. So we just have to see how the impact plays out. My own surmise is that it could differ from region to region. As Vinay said, the South is not impacted that much by nationalism and cross-border conflicts and so on. Perhaps, I mean, barring Karnataka, I don't see this nationalist sentiment be overplaying in any of the other southern states. But in the north itself, the impact could differ from state to state, and that would be very interesting to watch.
Right, Mr. Raut, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to say that yes, there is farmers issue, there are farmer starvation, and there are cases of suicides going up. But when it comes to national security versus other issues, national security takes the prime seat. So I don't think at the end of the day it will have any impact. The impact that would perhaps happen in the urban areas would be perhaps the Rafale issue. Yes. Because if you remember, the Bofors issue had come up and that took the wicket of Rajiv Gandhi, if you remember that.
Yes.
Yeah. So it would perhaps, but at the same time I would say that in 1971, when Indira Gandhi won the Bangladesh war, and immediately the elections happened and she came out with flying colors. Okay. So that these two examples are there. So I think national security that always comes forth.
Yes. So I'll come to the Rafale bit in just one more minute. But Mr. Batchasen, do you agree that when it comes to nationalism, even farmers, out of maybe fear or the security,
the job issues, everything takes back seat.
They will forget their own pain, their own debts, and still go ahead and vote for the BJP? What about the farmers?
Tanvi, I'm actually a little cautious about this nationalism card. Of course, if there's a full-scale war going on between India and Pakistan last week, probably a sort of war was there in Kargil, but that was in a sense an undeclared war. Pakistan pretended it wasn't there. But in Bangladesh was an example which I saw in my living memory. That kind of a war does have huge upsurge of nationalism, but this, I'm not trying to dismiss what happened in Balakot. I'm not trying to dismiss Pulwama, but this is on a much smaller scale. I do believe what Mr. Raut says, that if there is, for instance, yet another one from the sea this time, as our Navy chief has suggested or said says that he suspects might happen, then it will change the ball game. But if it is a little more than a skirmish and more than that, okay, I do go along with the fact that India took a decisive decision to go 80 kilometers into Pakistan territory. All of that is there, but I do not know how long the nationalist fervor will last, and actually how soon the realism of life, which is basically acute rural distress, impoverishment, lack of jobs, and so on, I do not know how quickly that will come back on center stage. Secondly, a beleaguered opposition, which now begins to see the game going out of its grip, could be galvanized into uniting. For instance, if the SP and BSP stay united in Uttar Pradesh, whether there's nationalism or not, whether there's a sort of chest thumping or not, the caste combinations alone could definitely make it much worse than much better for the opposition than they had in 2014. I mean, the BJP stood there. Mayawati was wiped out in 2014. This time, I don't think she's going to get wiped out at all. I do believe that two things are happening here. I don't think there will be such fervor because it's not war anymore, unless we'll have a series of strikes, in which case, by the way, we'll all begin to suspect something very, very fishy and not just a naval attack, which is very, very fishy, something fishy if it keeps happening. What I do believe is that if there's no more surgical strikes and so on, this might die out, and the real factors which were plaguing the BJP, joblessness, agrarian crisis, impoverishment all over, that could come to the fore. And of course, if the opposition stops playing one game, that is Rafale, and goes back to the basics and unites, then it could be a much tougher fight than we are thinking now.
That's a lot of ifs to be factored in, and a lot of it has to do with whether opposition can unite and get its own house in order. I have to take a very small break, but those are the two big themes that we will look into when we come back: the opposition arithmetic versus a united challenge, if they can put one up against Narendra Modi, and the Rafale factor. So stay tuned. We'll come back with lots more. Welcome back. May 23rd is when India will find out who's going to be part of the next government, who's going to be part of the next Lok Sabha, the 543 seats that go to polls between 11th April and 19th May. We are in the middle of a discussion with our expert panelists to figure out what could be the key themes and what could be the key issues that could swing the votes. And we left off the conversation where Mr. Badshah Sen was speaking about the opposition and, how many of them end up sticking together. Or one of the big alliances that have already been announced, of course, is SP and BSP. Vinay, let's start with you. Do you see that continuing, lasting?
No, certainly. I think the BSP and SP's alliance got announced way before anyone else did, and they were very clear about it. And I think both leaders are very pragmatic in that sense. They're also very street smart. They know that if they don't come together, almost both of them risk being wiped out completely. And I don't think they want to do that. Also, remember, both are also playing this game not just for 2019, but also for the 2022 assembly elections.
Correct.
And they know that this is the only way in which they can stay relevant in a state, which is the only area where they are actually of any significance in that sense. So they are pragmatic. This alliance will certainly last, and it's also an alliance which is based on very sound arithmetic. So in UP, for instance, the BJP's task is pretty difficult. There's no question about that. I mean, Badshah mentioned at the start about Mayawati getting wiped out. She got 0 seats, but she got 19% vote shares. And you will rarely see a situation in a Lok Sabha election where a party gets 19 to 20% votes but doesn't win a single seat. So that's the starting block that she always has with her. And if you just do a plus factor to that along with the alliance, it's a formidable challenge for the BJP, no doubt about that.
Okay, but does it work on ground? Because, I mean, obviously, when the SP Congress alliance happened in the state elections, their on-ground cadre wasn't in support of it, and that, I mean, I saw that on ground it was counterproductive for the Samajwadi Party.
In the SP Congress alliance, the problem more was that the SP actually conceded more seats to Congress than they should have. They ended up harming themselves by giving over 110 seats to the Congress, and I think that was a strategic mistake. You are right about one factor, that the Jatavs and the Yadavs, for instance, traditionally can't get along, and to have them now being on the same side can also impact some bit. Now the question is that how much of damage can this do? It's a forced alliance. They don't naturally get along. The Jadavs can't handle or can't stand the Yadavs' dominance and superiority. And if you remember, both states, whenever the party, depending on who comes to rule, their administration gets divided completely on caste lines. So pretty obviously there is some damage there. But is that damage enough to actually cause a problem which is going to help the BJP? I doubt that.
Okay. Okay. And what about the others? And we've also got Mr. Kinshuk Nag, author and senior writer, joining us this evening. Mr. Kinshuk Nag, your view on the entire Modi versus a united opposition argument. Do we see? Okay, I believe we've lost the audio line with him, so I'll go across to him in just a bit. Mr. Bharat Kumar Rao, your view? Does it work? What about the others? Chandrababu Naidu and Mamata Banerjee met a few times, but it's not played out. After that, there is Deve Gowda on one side.
Yeah, let me put my neck out and say that the basic concept of Mahagathbandhan is a non-starter. And it has happened now and again. Yes. Many times it has been happening. This is because in the Mahagathbandhan, except perhaps Congress, rest are regional forces. And in regional forces, every regional party has a supremo. Every regional party has one leader, and their population, they look at that hero as the prime ministerial candidate. And if that person, for example, in West Bengal, Mamata Banerjee, or in Maharashtra, Sharad Pawar, if their own followers, they start thinking, no, my leader is going to play second fiddle, they would not accept it. For Maharashtrian people, for Sharad Pawar's NCP's followers, Sharad Pawar is the prime minister candidate.
Okay.
For Trinamool, it is Mamata Banerjee who is the prime minister. For in UP, it is Mulayam Singh is the prime minister. So, because of this over-ambitious scenario, this Mahagathbandhan will never work. I have seen this from 1971 onwards, when there was Maha-Aghadi. Maha-Aghadi was, Badi Aghadi was the title, and then it did not work at all. And similar things keep happening. Badi Aghadi, Choti Aghadi, Third Force, these things don't work.
But so that may be in pre-election. But what about post-result scenario? Will there desperation or will their hatred for the BJP and their leaders make them come together? If push comes to shove, what do you think happens then?
No,
the joke is from the other side.
Even the post-election scenario, if it comes to BJP versus something, I don't think they will share their personal ego and go against the BJP and will play second fiddle or third fiddle. No, they will not do. They will keep asking for the prime seat, and that will be a problematic situation. And I don't think that is likely to happen in any case. I don't think this Mahagathbandhan will survive till the last phase of election. I don't see that.
Okay, Mr. Kinchuk Nag, I believe, is with us now. Mr. Nag, good evening to you. Right now, the point of conversation is Modi versus the rest. Can the opposition, a united opposition arithmetic, really work to stop Prime Minister Modi from returning to power? Where do you stand? Mr. Kinchuk Nag, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes. Okay. So the question was to you. What's your view? Do we have an opposition that's ready to keep their own egos aside and come together to stop the BJP? Actually do it?
Well, whether they can actually do it or not, I don't know. But now the time has come for them to reduce their egos. Whether they'll be successful or not, I don't know. Also, I would like to say that at this point of time, after Balakot, things are a little better for Mr. Modi. And things are not as dim for him as it was before Balakot. Now the opposition will find the narrative a little more difficult, though I agree with the proposition that in different states, there will be different narratives, and it's not that Mr. Modi will sell heavily in southern states and all, though it is possible that in northern states he will have a popularity. However, at this point of time, it is advantage Mr. Modi, I think, but the elections are still away, and it's, so I don't know whether this will continue or not. So since the elections are also in so many phases, we don't know what's going to happen. But right now, today, if you ask me, after Pulwama and all, it seems to be advantage Modi. And therefore, if the opposition has to give him a fight, they have to come together, bury their egos, and whether they'll be able to do it, I don't know. But let's see what happens.
What do they need to do to get their act together to maybe try and change the discourse or bring it back to what it was? Mr. Badshah Sen, let's go back to that aspect as well. How does the opposition need to unite and say, no, let's bring back the conversation to farmers, to jobs, or what should be their strategy from here on?
Well, you see, if you look back at how the BJP came to where it is, it formed tactical alliances at state-wise. I mean, they shook hands with the Shiv Sena in Maharashtra long ago. They did it with Nitish Kumar in Bihar. They've done it earlier also with the Patnaik. So the point is, state-wise unification efforts are probably more contained and therefore more feasible. Therefore, I would say that, I mean, if the opposition gets together and says, until all of us unite all over India and fight a joint battle against the BJP, that's not going to work. I completely agree with Mr. Rao. That is an impossible task. And I'm talking about pre-election. I'm not talking about what happens after the elections. What I'm talking about is the division of votes. So if the SP and the BSP get together and stick to it in, let's say, UP as they are, For instance, the Congress and the NCP have already signed an alliance in Maharashtra. And if they stick to it, it's likely to be a more firm alliance than the present BJP-Shiv Sena alliance. The Shiv Sena is not terribly happy with the BJP, as we've been seeing before, in recent times. So I think that alliances that are required are the sort of alliances as far as the opposition is concerned. In Karnataka, it's fixed. In Tamil Nadu, the things are fixed. I mean, in the sense DMK with Congress and ADMK with BJP. There's no sort of effort to spread that all over India, you see. So if you can do it that way, state by state, then the opposition stands a better chance than trying to get together and have that Mexican wave and so on and so forth, 19, 20 characters, diverse fellows. It would confuse the voter to begin with. I think state-wise is what is the way that they need to go if they want to make a show of it.
Okay, let's go quickly move on to the other big issue.
Here, one point I want to ask is that mention. Here, the BJP is playing a smarter card than the Congress and its allies, because BJP is going region-wise, state-wise. They are having different allies state-wise. For example, in Maharashtra, they are going with Shiva Sena. In Punjab, they are going Akali Dal, and so on and so forth. They are Nitish Kumar. So, as per the demand of that region, they are going for the alliance. So, each of their ally remains smaller with limited ambition, and they for that state that becomes helpful. So, I think instead of going of national alliance, that what Mahagathbandhan has done, they are going region-wise, peace basis, and they can change their narrative for each state. And that is the advantage that BJP will get. Whether it is correct in democracy or not, that is a different story. Okay. But in election, that works.
Okay. The other aspect that we spoke of was the impact of the entire Rafale controversy. And Vinay, while largely it does seem like Congress managed to own that narrative for a bit, because every day there would be a new angle, a new document, a new story, a new controversy, and then you would see the government on the back foot trying to defend it. But has it worked enough to play on the voters' mind to say, okay, maybe there was corruption, I don't know, can it work like that?
Well, look, the underlying objective of the Congress and perhaps specifically Rahul Gandhi, I guess, was to ensure that the so-called Teflon-coated image that Mr. Modi enjoys, that gets dented, because he was acutely aware that in the 4.5 years, there was very little of direct allegation that could have been leveled against the PMO or himself in terms of a direct corruption taint. And that was a big problem for the Congress, because you really need this removal of the Teflon coat to make him look like any other politician. And Rafale gave them that opportunity. I'm a little skeptical about how much an issue like Rafale actually plays out in the areas where it really matters. This is largely an urban area issue. Rafale is such a subject where you either believe somebody or you don't believe somebody. And I'll tell you a small little thing, Tanvi. It's actually a couplet from Ramayana, which is very apt here. And that particular couplet said, "Samrat ko nahi desh gusai, dosh gusai." What it essentially means is that if you think of somebody as good, or his leader, you don't care even if there is an allegation or a taint against that person.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the end. Now, in the core Modi constituency in the urban India, I don't think anyone is ready to believe that. Now, the question is, yes, there are some fence-sitters who may believe something went wrong. They've handled the Rafale issue fairly badly in terms of communication, and that has led to even more suspicions about something being wrong. Now, but I'm still not very sure of how much it will translate into a situation strong enough to electorally benefit the Congress. I mean, it's part of a narrative. But can it swing seats for them? I really have my doubts over that.
So what can swing seats? If we have a month from here on, say the initial euphoria of the airstrikes now begins to recede a little, what can work for them?
Well, so there are three. I mean, look, I think every panelist is perhaps saying so. Indian elections are incredibly complicated. You have people who vote parties, you have people who vote candidates, there are people who vote caste and religion, and every area differs from each other. It's incredibly complicated. I'll just add two more things to that complication. In an overarching theme, there are two larger subtexts that also come out in every election. Either the electorate looks for a compelling alternate, or it looks to punish an incumbent. These are sometimes the two big reasons why somebody gets voted in or voted out. In 2015, for instance, Kejriwal was looking like a compelling alternate, so people voted for him in Delhi in huge numbers.
Yes.
In 2009, BJP wasn't looking like a compelling alternate, even though people were slightly unhappy with the Congress government. There was a recession that had hit in. It wasn't as if they weren't unhappy, but BJP didn't look compelling enough, so they didn't go for him. In 2014, BJP was both an compelling alternate as well as people angry with the current UPA. So you had this good landslide victory for the, in the sense, a single party majority for BJP. So the question now is the opposition today a compelling alternate? And in that narrative, some bit of momentum of jobs and farm was getting built up, which has gotten a little arrested and halted because of this overarching nationalism, patriotism, Balakot strike. Because here comes a man who you can't dislike for having taken a decisive action. So even those who were fence-sitters in that may perhaps will find it difficult to go against that kind of a sentiment.
Okay, I also wanted to then talk specifically about the southern states because like our panelists are saying, the nationalism card or the that doesn't play out that strongly in the southern states firstly.
Or national safety.
More the national safety, yes. And while it was part of a long-term vision for Amit Shah from the northern states to then east and down south, I don't know. It doesn't seem like BJP has successfully managed to make those kind of inroads. What's your view? Do they have a strong play in South?
Yes, BJP does not have as strong play as it has in the central India or in the northern India. But Amit Shah very carefully and wisely has gone into alliance with the AIDMK and PMK in Tamil Nadu. That is a very, very shrewd and smart card because on its own, BJP does not stand any chance, not even one seat. Last time, I think in 14, it got only one seat.
Yes.
Yeah. So it would not have improved its situation. So if they have gone with AIDMK, then perhaps they stand better chances. More than better chances for themselves, they will recede the wave of DMK, which had started coming in. They have stopped it. So that is a very shrewd card. In Kerala also, Amit Shah is making inroads.
For example, will the Sabrimala issue help them?
Yeah, Sabrimala issue would definitely, because it has touched people's mind, people's heart. So touching the chord is important, and Sabrimala has really helped him. I don't know whether that would last for another month when Kerala goes to poll. But in Goa they will again go with both seats. One is sympathy wave because of Parrikar, and other thing is that Congress is not doing, it is not a united force in Goa. It's a tiny state, but it is not a united state force in Goa.
Correct.
Therefore, there also both the seats, I am sure that will go for BJP.
Correct. Let me see if I can just quickly bring in Mr. Kingshuk Nag, if he is able to hear us. Mr. Nag, do you agree with what Bharat Kumar Raut is saying here? When it comes to the southern states, can those be the key states then to maybe stop the BJP?
Well, BJP has no presence in Andhra Pradesh or Telangana or Tamil Nadu. The only state they are present is in Karnataka. So here in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, they are depending on their regional partners, so-called regional partners. In Telangana, they are depending on TRS. And in Andhra Pradesh, their ally earlier was TDP, now TDP has broken. So now they don't have any way. So basically, the South will play a very important role. Plus, this card of nationalism, the card against Pakistan does not work so much so in South India as it works in North Indian states, etc. So these are the swing states as far as BJP is concerned. They have to do well, or their partners have to do well here if they can come back to power. But to me, it seems, as I said earlier, I think that it is still advantage BJP because of Pulwama and all these things. But the BJP would have to fight very hard. They want to also take West Bengal, where their position will be certainly much better than what it was in the last election because of other reasons, where they are facing Mamta, who is a very strong leader. But Mamta depends on a lot of minority votes, and Amit Shah is going there and appealing to the Hindu votes. Whether he'll be able to take a few more seats or not, we don't know. Most probably they'll get more Lok Sabha seats, but not the entire state. So it's going to be an interesting elections. It is still very early days and we can't predict. But as of today, I think it is advantage. But then the elections are very long. We don't know what's going to happen all over.
Correct.
Over the next weeks.
Yes, that absolutely. And like Vinay was pointing out earlier as well, that they're also so complicated because each part has its own characteristics and you have your own regional leaders and parties and so it's difficult to judge like that. But if you look at some of these surveys that were done just 2 months ago, where it looked like perhaps the battle was slightly more wide open than it is now. Will the airstrike and the nationalism card be the only factor that may have now swung it in BJP's way? Or can you also factor in the farmers' income that they have announced, the jobs quota that they have announced for the general category?
Well, look, I mean, in terms of the surveys, I very strongly believe that the committed voter doesn't change its opinion so easily on issues. So an incident here or an event there doesn't really make much of a difference, and BJP certainly has a fair amount of committed voter that they enjoy. Just like other parties has as well, like BSP has a committed voter bank, SP has committed voter bank. In that sense, the one party with the biggest trouble currently is the Congress, because they've lost the maximum committed vote bank over the last 15-20 years of their decline. I mean, they've just lost every committed vote bank that they used to enjoy earlier, including even caste-based committed vote bank. So there is that worry that they have. In states, there is definitely a situation varies. Kingshuk mentioned in West Bengal, it's different. In Andhra, it is different. In Tamil Nadu, it's different. So it'll, of course, play out differently. My only thing is, I really don't think a survey which is done, say, 2 months ahead of the poll, 3 months ahead, is enough indicator of how things will pan out.
Correct.
Once the actual process begins. Because now you will have the candidate's name being announced.
Yes.
Now you'll have factors like rebels in certain seats. You will have parties campaign. You'll have the fund being deployed by different parties as a factor. And remember, there is one other factor which we haven't spoken about, but in my book it will play a mind, is Indian elections usually happen at a time which is just after the harvest season ends. And the harvest season in the farmlands reminds the farmers of a lot of other issues, whether it is procurement issue, whether it is the money they get for it, whether they're able to sell their produce or not, how much damage they've suffered. This is a critical period in rural India. March and April is when the harvest is actually happening. So the polling happens in the middle, just ahead of that. And that does play a role as well. Now, if the farm distress is indeed as deep as most people seem to suggest, it's not as if nationalism will trump every other thing and will become a completely winning formula. I don't think that's going to happen. But having said that, as I said, it will perhaps vary from state to state, and it will also vary from how well the BJP is able to systematically do what I believe is like a timed capsule, right? You have a timed release capsule where it slowly dissolves. Now, this Balkot and Pulwama, how well they will slowly use over the next couple of months or so will probably determine the extent of the mood.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I come from Maharashtra, and as far as Maharashtra is concerned, I can say that unlike many elections before, this time the caste card will play a very, very vital and decisive role in these elections.
Okay.
This is because, there is an uprise of Marathas.
Yes.
For the reservation issue.
Yes.
The Maratha morchas that went on for 13 months, that has really created an atmosphere of casteism in Maharashtra. Apart from that, the OBCs, the uprise of OBC is also to be concerned about.
Yes.
And the scheduled castes, they are also up in arms. It means that the division between caste and caste, that has become now palpable and visible. So if that becomes the merit of voting, then perhaps the whole thing will go haywire. Fortunately, unfortunately, or incidentally, the Congress or NCP particularly, that was so far the only organization for Marathas has no longer remained like that. Or the Shiva Sena, that was so far commanding control over the OBCs, that has also not remained like that. So it will be worth seeing where this vote will go. Perhaps candidate-wise, each constituency, the candidate, whichever party, whichever caste it belongs to, that party will stand again.
I mean, if from one aspect you see largely, if there are Marathas or Patidars and Jats, all of them coming out on streets and demanding quota and demanding reservation, it's also because they are not doing that well right now. It is also because they are not getting the job opportunities. They are not able to economically progress as the rest of the country. I feel it's just a sign again that people are right now not seeing enough employment opportunities or not seeing enough growth opportunities. Yes. But will they analyze it like that, or will they see the way you said that it boils down to then my caste versus your caste?
To that level. Here united we are likely to fall, and divided they would stand.
Correct. Well, so we'll wait and watch. This is just the beginning, the first conversations of many more to follow What has happened today is just that officially the election season has begun. Model Code of Conduct is in force. What will happen from here on is lots of news and developments and rallies and charges and counter charges, and we will keep a very close track of all of those developments for you. For India Votes, the special election coverage on Mirror Now also begins starting today now, and on 23rd of May it will all culminate on the counting day. So we wait and see how things turn from here on. Our experts will continue to join us to give their views. Thank you so much for joining us on this special broadcast.